The Truth About Autism and Tylenol Part 3. Have you ever wondered why the president constantly says things like this?
I'm not a doctor, but I'm giving my opinion. I'm not so careful with what I say.
These are not careless throwaway lines. They are a core part of his message. By the end of this video, they will make perfect sense. Today, I'm going to present a framework for cutting through the noise and confusion so you can clearly see the core messages involved in this discourse and respond accordingly. I'm not going to tell you what position you should take. That's up to you. This video is on how to respond effectively, not what that response should be. Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. I'm both excited and nervous about sharing this topic with you today. I don't normally allow myself quite such a technical deep dive, but it's an incredibly powerful framework that's made a huge difference for me personally. So I hope some of you really appreciate it. Now, as I warned you in the previous video, today is a bit advanced. It's absolutely not for everyone. So if it doesn't make sense, no hard feelings, just click away, okay? In fact, how about I give you a high-level summary before we jump into the details? How to respond effectively. Essentially, real-life stories are more powerful than theoretical arguments. So show, don't tell, be kind to each other, stand up for your truth with your everyday life, and slowly turn your enemies into friends. That's the simple version. The rest of this video explores the theoretical framework underpinning that advice. And I should probably give you a second warning here. You won't be able to unsee this. The pattern that I'm about to show you is literally everywhere. So enter at your own risk. Ready? I'm excited. Let's go. Bear with me. I need to give you a tiny bit of theory just to put what I'm about to say into context. Firstly, did you know that ideas themselves can be empirically categorized according to their level of complexity? In other words, some ideas are objectively, measurably more complex than others. A lot of research has gone into something called the Model of Hierarchical Complexity, or MHC, developed by Michael Commons. If you're interested to look it up for yourself, the best research I've found on this is Chapter 8 of The Listening Society by Hansi Freinacht. It's quite dense, but totally worth it if you can follow. Anyway, let me give you some simple examples. This is an apple. It's a physical object, you can see it, you can touch it, it takes up space. It's what we often call concrete, which is level 9 in the MHC. Now compare that to the abstract concept of an apple, or better still, the concept of fruit in general. What is fruit? The concept isn't physical, you can't see or touch it. It's a class of physical objects. In other words, an abstract concept is objectively more complex than concrete physical objects. So let's briefly explore level 10 abstract level of complexity. Here, everything is binary. You are either a fruit or not a fruit. Things are either good for you or bad for you. There is no graduation. Truth good, lies bad. An example of a statement at this level of complexity: apples are good for you. Black and white, absolute, no shades of grey. Trust me, this will all make sense in a minute. The next level of complexity is level 11, formal. At this level, you can have a linear relationship. In other words, we're introducing nuance from black and white to shades of grey. It reminds me of this scene from The Big Bang Theory.
More wrong? Wrong is an absolute state and not subject to gradation.
Of course it is. It's a little wrong to say a tomato is a vegetable. It's very wrong to say it's a suspension bridge.
At this level, we can ask questions like how much truth is in that statement. It's no longer black and white. Instead of truth good, lies bad, now we have more truth equals more good. This is the level of complexity of a lot of empirical scientific inquiry. We're analyzing two variables and asking what is the correlation between these two things. We no longer assume a one-to-one relationship. An example of a statement at this level of complexity is eating too much sugar can have adverse effects on your health. Have I lost you yet? The next step is to ask what happens when you take an idea at complexity level 11 and simplify it to complexity level 10. Well, let's use the previous example. Eating too much sugar can have adverse effects on your health becomes sugar is bad for you. Can you see where I'm going with this? The scientific finding that some studies have identified an association between autism and Tylenol use during pregnancy is simplified to Tylenol causes autism. These two statements are at a different level of complexity. It's not an exaggeration, it's a simplification. And recognizing this makes a very, very big difference. Let me summarize the argument in the Tylenol address at this simplified level of complexity. Babies, good. Autism hurt babies. Autism, bad. Tylenol cause autism. Tylenol, bad. Vaccines hurt babies. Vaccines, bad. Doctors give vaccines to babies. Doctors, bad. Doctors, complex, nuanced research. Me, simple, common sense, truth. Me, friend. Me, trust. Them, not friend. Them, not trust. Hopefully you're getting the picture. When viewed through this lens, the main message here is not about autism or Tylenol at all. The main message is that you can't trust doctors, you can only trust him. He is your friend, they are the enemy. That's the message that his supporters are going to hear. Now, I want to be really clear on something. Maybe you're thinking, simple bad, nuance good. If so, that's fine, that's your opinion. That is not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that simple is effective. Should and should not do not come into it. Simple is effective. And I'll give you an example of a simple counter-argument in a minute. But first, now that you can see this complexity distinction, let's look at how some people responded to the Tylenol announcement.
Because, he's just such a terrible messenger for a public health message. He reads what's on the paper, and then he exaggerates what's on the paper. Even though what is on the paper is already exaggerated from what we actually know.
Scientific press conferences are not supposed to be about how you feel. When you nix nuance and mix that messaging with partisan politics, people lose trust in us, actual doctors.
These two responses disagree with the president on two fronts. One, they think you should trust actual doctors, i.e. the science. And two, they think the announcement should have been more nuanced, i.e. more scientifically accurate. You'll notice that they're arguing against level 10 abstract with level 11 formal, which tends to not be all that effective. Let me show you why. Consider the following criticism. Correlation does not imply causation. He's misleading the public. He shouldn't mix his own opinion with medical evidence. He's ignoring the advice of every health institution in the world and turning science into partisan politics. People will lose trust in doctors. So now let's look at those statements from the start of the video. Why would he say,
I'm not a doctor, but I'm giving my opinion. I'm not so careful with what I say.
The message at level 10 abstract is clear. Doctors, bad. Me not doctor. Doctors, careful with words. Doctors, trick you with complex, nuanced message. Me honest. Me simple. Me give truth. So if that's what's really being said, and we've seen that complex arguments don't work, what can we do instead? Here's an example of a simple counter-argument. Problems, bad. Solutions, good. Knowledge, help find solutions. Knowledge, good. Research, get knowledge. Research, good. Doctors, do research, find knowledge, get solutions. Doctors, good. Ultimately, abstract arguments are all about trust. Who do you trust more, doctors or the president? This means that if you're going to engage in an argument, it has to be about who you can trust. For example, we can see that the main way he discredits doctors in the address is the big pharma argument, implying that doctors are being paid to mislead you.
And maybe that's the drug companies that make more money that way. Maybe it's the doctors, they get maybe more money. Who the hell knows what it is?
So what's the opposite of that? A simple argument? Local doctor, Mary. She good woman. She family doctor. She help children stay healthy. She honest. She trustworthy. She say Tylenol safe. President lie. President billionaire. President not in our community. President only care about money. This type of reasoning is completely different from he should be more accurate with scientific information or he should listen to the medical community. So you might also be wondering, if the president is trying to remove the credibility of doctors, researchers, and science in general, why does he also lean on research for credibility? The answer can again be understood from a level 10 abstract mindset. Remember that everything is either good or bad, right or wrong. So from this perspective, there is no such thing as objective scientific research. There is only credible research done by people we trust to find the truth, and fraudulent research conducted by people we don't trust to try and mislead us. If you buy into the doctor's bad, big pharma trying to trick us worldview, then their research is false and our research that promotes our truth is good. This is a little bit like flat earthers doing experiments to prove their beliefs.
Enrique, how high is your light?
17 feet.
We don't see you, Enrique. Lift up your light way above your head. Interesting.
Does it make sense now that certain research might get defunded and other research with other objectives might suddenly get funding? Anyway, perhaps I digress slightly. Back to the main topic, how to respond to messaging from level 10 abstract. We've already seen that using more complex arguments won't be effective, but we've got one more trick up our sleeve. Remember how I said that the simpler argument always wins? Well, what's simpler than level 10 abstract? That's right, level 9 concrete. So when this guy says,
"These are kids who will never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date,"
the best rebuttal is the physical existence of autistic people who do pay taxes, who do have a job, who do write poems, who not only went out on a date, but are also married with autistic children of their own. You can't argue theoretically against a community that actually exists. Or rather, you can, but it's about as effective as doing scientific research to try and convince someone who doesn't trust doctors that Tylenol is safe to use during pregnancy when the president has told you otherwise. So what's the key takeaway? You can use your knowledge of levels of complexity to identify the kinds of arguments that are being made and respond accordingly. Often abstract arguments are really about trust rather than facts. Who you trust determines the facts that you accept. Complex arguments only work against other complex arguments and are almost never productive when each person trusts a different authority. At the end of the day, in my opinion, the world would be a much better place for autistic people if we could understand a little bit more of the nuance that comes with the autistic experience. However, as we've seen, insisting on nuance often backfires. That's why my focus has been and continues to be sharing lived experience. I like this approach because it has an undeniable power that words simply lack. In that sense, it's apolitical. Without the need to advocate for or against anything, it simply shares the reality of the experience that exists within the community. Anyway, congratulations if you've made it this far in the video. I'm really curious and this time a little bit nervous to hear what you think of this video. I know it's not exactly the kind of stuff that I usually make. And actually, I have one more video in mind for this topic, so we'll see if that gets off the ground. Answering the question of how do we effectively respond to the warrior mum narrative and the My Little Superhero narrative. There was a really interesting SBS Dateline documentary recently called The American Autism Wars, and with the framework that has been described in this video, there's a lot we could unpack with understanding what's going on there. So should I make that? What do you think? We'll leave it there for today though. Thanks again for watching and indulging me in this deep dive. I hope you found it valuable and at least some of it made sense, and I will see you again next week. Bye. If you got any value out of this video, please consider supporting this channel financially on Patreon. Any non-zero contribution, no matter how small, makes a big difference. Thanks.